order. Everybody's here, so we have a full quorum. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public participation, closed to in-person participation, participation via written comments. I don't believe that we have anything that has come in.
We have not received any.
So I want to skip having to read all of this for this evening.
Oh, I did receive 2 emails in my town email from Mike Fortin.
Oh, you wanna?
You want to address that now, or
Why don't we do
under
that?
other business under Article 4?
Right,
Okay.
okay. Article 1, to consider the board meeting minutes of January 12 and 19.
Public participation?
We're gonna, if you're doing this as a board member, we're gonna do this under Article 4.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so back to Article 1, to consider the board meeting minutes of January 12 and 19. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Oh, a second.
All in favor? No discussion. Article passed. Article 2, to consider the treasurer's warrants. I need a motion.
Consider a warrant.
Jason, I need
I'll
a second.
second.
No? Yep.
All in
Favor? Yep. Opposed? Article carries. Article 3, to consider the town's 6-month financial expenses and revenue report. Do you have a motion?
I make a motion, we review it.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Well, it's my understanding this was just to basically approve them and see if we had questions over what had transpired so far, correct? And,
Yep.
okay. I'm good.
Okay, I'm good too. Anybody else?
No, I reviewed it.
All in favor? Opposed? Article carries. Article 4, this is basically for the board members to comment. I'm gonna move that article this evening to the last item on the agenda. We have so much business here to do tonight that I'm gonna try to move things along as much as I can. And that will be the last one to be considered. So we're gonna move Article 4 to the last item on the agenda.
You have gym items on there too, though, you know, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have quite a few items in there, but I'll try to take care of those as quickly as possible. Article 5, to consider an application for abatement of property taxes for property account number 534.
Yeah, so this is a property that was, had a tree growth plan that was submitted by the Tilton Tracks in the assessing office. So, once we got their bill, obviously we saw that the tree growth wasn't applied. So this is to basically put that property, provide the abatement for that. What the value of the tree growth, what it reduces the value for, and it's $466.14. Would be my recommendation that we approve.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the tax statement as written.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
So this was truly like an error on
On the town.
the town?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Article 5 will carry. Article 6, consider an application for abatement of property taxes for property account number 2070.
So this one here is, they were entitled to their homestead exemption, but it was removed. You know, when the assessing office comes in, they go through all of the homesteads, all of the updates and the changes. So again, when they got their bill, they noticed that, you know, they didn't get the homestead exemption, but he passed away after April 1. And so there was some, you can see the paperwork that's included with that. So this account is entitled to their homestead exemption. And will be my recommendation that we approve it.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the abatement as written.
I will second.
Second? Any other discussion?
Just for my own reference, like, I don't have a problem with this because I understand what happened, but, well, why wouldn't she have gotten it even if he had passed before April first, like,
It was taken out.
but should it have been taken out if he had passed before April first?
No, it shouldn't have been taken out.
Okay,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
I just didn't understand how that worked. Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 7, to consider a proposal by Powers Roofing and Sheet Metal for the roof replacement on the safety complex building.
So what, if I may, what prompted this is discussions with Gerald. Gerald's working on the budget, his budget for the buildings and stuff, and, we had this discussion, our plan to replace the roof on this building. Remember, we funded it, we decided to fund it half in the budget that we're in with the reserve account, and the other half
All right.
in the budget that we're gonna get to work on, still needs to be approved at town meeting. So Gerald had reached out to Powers to see if they were willing to, what was their price, if they were gonna honor their price, and they came back with this proposal, that they would honor the price, if we would enter into an agreement. Right now, they have the materials for this building, and they would honor it. So it's a little bit, the cart ahead of the horse, if you will. But I gotta put it before you because it's a proposal that was made, so, we still as a board, you guys as a board still have to, with the finance committee, still have to work on funding the other half of this project. And then it still has to get past that town meeting, so you gotta be cognizant of that as you decide on this proposal.
We had, appropriated 50,000?
50, yeah.
Yeah, in the long run, we calculated that it'd be cheaper to do it in one big bang than it would.
Yeah.
Rather than thirds,
Right.
because Gerald's gonna tackle it in thirds
Yeah.
instead of half and
So we
half.
should have a motion before we discuss,
Yep.
correct?
Sorry, so I need a vote.
I'll motion that we accept it.
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
Have we reached out to any other contracting firms to see if prices are better?
We'd have to ask Gerald, around here, it's only really Powers, I think Powers Roofing that is, has the market up here. So we could ask Gerald to see if there's any other firms. They're the ones that just did the, over the fire department. They did that one not too long ago, so.
Well, we certainly want to fulfill our requirement to the law as far as bidding procedure.
I would agree that I would like to know, like, is this the only, because I don't know anything about, who does roofing, so I too would just like to know if this is actually the only company there is, and I also would have a question for Kevin, I guess, since he's here. It says if the town provided their own trucks for hauling roofing debris, they could credit us $9,200. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did on the, when we did the other building.
Yeah, talked to me about it, and I said I didn't have a problem with that, as long as our
Okay.
trucks weren't being used, and if I know ahead of time, I can make arrangements.
Okay.
So we're discussing the idea of getting a second proposal here. Anybody else have any thoughts here?
So whoever made the original motion could just amend it to get a second,
I think Lori made the motion.
just amend your motion.
Yeah,
to make it-
To get a second
Yeah.
appraisal?
Well, I'm not saying we have to get a second one, but I'd like to know who else there is, and then if we do have to put it out to bid,
Okay.
I just want confirmation of that.
Okay.
So,
You wanna table it?
yeah.
You wanna just
So
withdraw it?
I'll just amend my motion to table this.
Okay.
Okay.
And
I
then,
seconded, so I agree.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tabled. We're under no rush here, huh? I mean,
No, I don't think so.
okay. What was that, Article 7? Article 8, to consider a request for religious holiday displays in the town's Main Street parks during the holidays.
So we got a request from Chris Canan. So I did put a legal inquiry on that, just so you guys have, because there's always a discussion and separation of church and state. So I want you guys to have the information that you need to make the decision that you can make that you're gonna be good with, comfortable with. So you basically have, the gist of their opinion is that, it's not prohibited by law. It would have to be something that if an organization or a person says they're gonna set up a manger, if you will, or whatever, for a display, for like a holiday display, that it would be theirs and there would be signage to indicate that it's, belongs to this group and maintained by this group. And that would satisfy the legal concerns that surround that. So you have that information in front of you.
And I believe
So I think-
from what I read, sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
just gonna request a motion to discuss this further.
Okay, I make a motion to accept.
Second,
I'll second.
any other further discussion?
Yeah, so I read into it myself as well, and I guess it has to appear with other festive decorations as well.
Right.
It can't be the only one there, but, I mean, I don't see any issues with allowing it.
So she's stating that she will take care of the display, the signage, and taking it down at the appropriate time.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
Are there gonna be timeframes specified as to how long certain setups can exist there?
Well, if it follows the rules, when we take down our Christmas decorations, they would have to take down their, because it has to display with other
Right.
festive decorations, so they can't put it up until we put up ours. And depending on how long,
I guess it would be just a somewhat of a formality for us to make sure that she's aware that these decorations have to make their way up and down
yeah.
at the same time that the town decorations are going up and
I mean,
down.
there's nothing wrong with setting a time frame, saying,
Don't misunderstand me, I have absolutely zero opposition to this,
yeah,
but I wouldn't want a nativity scene there on the 4th of July.
right.
Mhm.
So as long as we pick up our decorations by then, the snow's gone.
Yeah. Yep. Anybody else? Are we all in favor of allowing this to happen?
Yeah.
Opposed? Everybody's in favor? And this carries. Article 9, update on the town's authorized users domain or MMA legal service.
So this was part of an action item from our last meeting with a few things, and this was one of them. To check on who had consent to access to MMA Legal. So I polled MMA Legal just to kind of get them to respond. They responded that the previous board had authorized the town manager, the finance director, and the board chairman to have access to MMA Legal. So we went and found the minutes on that, and that was authorized on Tuesday, January 6, 2018, board meeting.
So, any motion to?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to allow all the board of selectmen, including the town manager and finance director, to contact legal services when needed.
I'll second that.
We don't have a finance
Or, sorry,
director, but,
yeah.
and then what about HR?
Okay, so let me amend my motion to include all board of selectmen and those currently allowed to access it, which would include,
Or you are the director, you're just not department head.
She's the finance director, she's just not
Okay,
the department.
okay, okay,
yeah.
sorry.
I don't want to take it away from who already has it. I just want to add the entire board to the list of those who have access to.
Anybody else? I haven't gone through the whole article here, but is MMA okay with allowing anybody to put a call through?
They generally like to have a limited number of people that are appointed by the board. So usually the board will appoint who from the board would have authorization, but it's up to the board, I think, to decide how many people they want to have access.
I'm sorry, we have a motion, did we have a second?
Yes.
We have a second, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I have conflicting information from MMA, countering what Mr. Picard is telling us. MMA told me that in most communities, all elected officials to the Board of Selectmen have full right to call into MMA for legal advice.
All right, anybody else?
Well, we should have the questions, we should be
All
able
right.
to call them.
So could you read the motion again? To allow,
To allow all selectmen and the current town manager, finance, and chair to remain, be able to call MMA legal.
okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So, Gary, are we gonna,
We'll send, once the minutes are drafted,
yep,
we'll send that to MMA Legal and we can make the necessary changes.
okay. Article 10, to consider an offer for purchase restaurant equipment of the former Orchids restaurant, assets held by the town of Madawaska's UDAG program.
So, just a little update, at our last board meeting, before you guys do motions and stuff, the board had said, have Jason and myself, have a conversation with Linda to try to see if we can negotiate, something better than that. So we did that today, this afternoon, and so, we had a pretty good discussion on that, and me and Jason took some good notes, so, if you wanna kind of bring the board up to speed on the discussion.
Yeah,
So could I have a motion first before we start discussing it?
Oh, motion.
Second? Yep, okay, go ahead.
Okay,
there's something else?
it's just for discussion.
No, I don't know, never mind. I was like, I don't know what we're both, like, what's the amount, or like, what's the.
Well, that's what we'll
Yeah.
talk about, yeah, discussion. So we definitely did have a good candid conversation today, and I think it went really well. We discussed some of the numbers, we discussed some of the items there. One of the items we discussed was the offer of $2,500 that she had initially made. And we compared that to the depreciation value of these items all the way down to 30%, I believe it was, that we calculated it to, which came out to roughly $12,500 that these new items would be worth at full 30% depreciation. So we wanted to try to talk to Linda and see if we can meet somewhere in the middle or discuss a higher value to these items. And the offer that came back was $5,000 for all the items. That includes all the physical items that are attached to the building, and everything that appears on the list that we have in front of us here. I would like, after having some other discussions and some thoughts about it, and I crunched some numbers together, and I think what the board should look at is, with the fully depreciated value of these items, and the items were inspected by Gary and by Keith, who had gone in there, looked at the items, documented, and having the value that they provided, I think the board should come up with two separate offers. I think the first offer should be $7,500, everything goes. That includes the hood system, the fire suppression system, the heat pumps that are installed, and everything on these lists. The second option would be, if she doesn't agree to that price, there are items we can't remove from that building. The heat pump, the fire suppression system, the hood system. And I looked at the value of all these items, and we actually have an email from Reno who says that the heat pump, for example, is still worth $1,000, as it is in its location. That's not removing it, that's not fixing it. As it is in its location, it's worth roughly $1,000. And if you take into consideration the fire suppression system, the hood system, and everything, all the items that have to stay with the building, you're looking at a value well over $3,000 or $4,000. So what I propose that we could talk about and do is, there are a lot of things on this list that us trying to individually sell would not benefit us in any way, but it could benefit her. And we do want to try to recover at least some value from the heat pump and these other things we can't remove. So I would propose that we offer her the $7,500, you keep everything, or $3,000, these numbers we can discuss, $3,000, And we go in and we get all the big equipment that we can use, there's a fryer that the rec department who cooks food can definitely use. There are some serving trays that when they do their lunch in the summertime for the kids, they can use for their programs. There's other departments in the town as well who can use some of this equipment. And there are restaurants in town who have shown interest in purchasing some of these larger items. And then we would also leave all the tables, the chairs, the utensils, the plates, anything that, that place has the good potential of becoming a restaurant. Whether or not that's what she wants it, doesn't matter. What matters is these items have no real worth on their own. So I would propose those two figures to the board and maybe discuss what you guys feel about those numbers and the process.
Okay. Anybody? So the second offer there, Jace, I mean, when you talk about picking up items there, I mean, can you give us an idea of what those would be worth? I mean, even though we're probably not going to end up selling those, I'm thinking that the town, the fire department or the rec or somebody will end up using some of these items?
I think the money saved by some of these departments who are not purchasing these equipment because they don't have it in their budget to purchase them.
Right,
I think just the usage of those items in the town departments is worth well more than what we could give if we just let them go for $5,000. I definitely think that $7,500 for all of the equipment is definitely a decent offer, and I think that, the equipment is worth the time of leaving it there. We did have some discussions of, well, this can be bought at $300 used on the market, that can be bought at $400 used on the market. But the deal is, for $7,500, she doesn't have to go hunt around to look for this equipment. She doesn't have to try to make deals in here and get the equipment brought in, and it's all yours, $7,500. If there's things you don't want, you can sell them yourself and probably make back more than that $7,500. Or for $3,000, we'll make use in town of the items the big ticket items that we think we can utilize, but we're willing to leave behind the items that are, the chairs, the tables, the things that benefit the look and style of that place. But I mean, those are just numbers that I calculated. They're obviously open.
so let's assume that she doesn't accept that first offer.
Right.
So we would be prepared to go in there between now and when did they take over the ownership?
I think they have a closing on the 11th, next week.
So that means that we would have to make our way in there to go pick up those items between now and then.
Right. Yeah.
And
And I think it's doable. I mean, we've got locations that aren't being used for the winter time that we can store some of these items. We've had offers from folks in town who are willing to help to get this stuff transitioned and moved across. So I definitely think the process of doing that is, and again, we're not taking the forks, the knives, the tables, the chairs, just the big ticket items that can be easily used in other locations.
okay, anybody else?
I don't, I mean, when we left here, I pretty much agree that Jason and Gary could come up with something and I would be satisfied with that, so I'm good.
You're good?
So what I would then do is I would amend my motion,
Yep,
or sorry, you made the motion. Would you like to amend your motion to include $7,500 value for everything goes, and then $3,000 value, and we'll list off the items that
Yeah,
will stay.
I will amend to what you just said.
so $7,500 is gonna be the whole amount with everything as is, we don't go in there, we don't, and if she doesn't accept that, then it will be a $3,000 offer, and we will pick up the items, and we're gonna list
Right.
those items, I'm assuming, for her.
Yes, and I'm looking at it as this way, what items do we keep, what's the value of those items? I'm looking at it as $3,000 is less than the value of the items we're leaving behind. For example, the fire hood system, you're gonna pay $6,000 just to get that installed, forget about the cost of getting one new or used. And So that's what I'm looking at. That $3,000 is basically, you're paying for the stuff we can't remove, and everything else we leave behind is kind of candy coated on top of the offer.
Okay. All right, do I need a vote to accept that offer of 7,500?
Can I just ask a little question, it's really not about this particular, but, you know, is that the norm that you've seen, like UDAG loans, that the town, I guess, you know, the equipment depreciates, right? And so, is that normal for the town to take collateral on items that'll depreciate so much like that?
Yeah,
Because to
so,
me, this seems like it was a bad deal for us, right? And I'm not judging whoever did it to begin with, because you want, you know, you want a new business to come in and you wanna do what you can, but,
So-
it just would worry me that if that's the norm, then this it can keep happening and
Right.
happening, and,
so, and it's a good, I'm glad you asked the question, so what I'm about to say might help you guys. So the UDAG program is a revolving loan fund, and it generally provides gap financing, okay? A business who will come to the town, might have, or somebody who wants to do an expansion, or whatever the business model is, they could come to the town when we have a UDAG program to offer financing to. Oftentimes, it's a supplemental to other financing that they're doing. And so these loans are approved in the context of a business and jobs and trying to, you know, give a business a chance to make a go of something. But when you are financing and there's other financiers at the table, you know, the bank is gonna take the first on the buildings, okay? So that's a given. And so most oftentimes, these UDAG loans, if they're, you know, we take a position on, we will take a second. And of course, you know, the loan administrator, you know, like Julie Corey, for instance, when she comes to the board and she says, you know, we have this project, these people wanna do this is a loan, we feel that we would recommend approving this or not recommend approving that, and it goes before the board. And they will advise the board of what position they can take, you know, given the circumstances of that financing package that business has available. And the board makes a decision to take a second on it, or sometimes it might be that we can take a first on it. If there's no other financing involved, then we will take a first. But in this instance, you know, the financing, the first was for the building was with North State, and we took collateral on the equipment. And so the UDAG program is by definition risky lending. The town has, over the years, had loans paid off and some that have defaulted, you know, and it's what it is, and I don't think it's any different than any other town that has a revolving loan fund. I think you're gonna have some successes and some losses, just like the bank, you know, so, if that's helpful to you.
Is
I
it,
was just curious, I mean,
is
it's,
it common to actually look for or request collateral?
Well, you wanna try to secure your.
I understand, but I mean, is it always go that way, or do you sometimes just give out a UDAG loan with no
No, we-
collateral?
With the exception of the Boost program, we always look for collateral.
Okay.
You know, and we look for the best collateral that we can get. If we can take first on property, then we'll take it. But if we can't, you know, then we won't. We'll take it on the equipment or something else. Sometimes it could be collateral on other assets, not necessarily the ones that are, you know, and sometimes with loan servicing, that happens, you know, people will refinance and they'll put up other kinds of collateral, their home or land or something like that, so.
Anybody else? So we have a motion and we have a second to offer Linda $7,500 and she keeps everything. And if she doesn't accept that, the offer will be $3,000 and we'll pick up the items listed that we are gonna provide her.
Right.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 11, consider the Public Works Department bid specs for the town's 21-22 road and streets paving project.
You want to do your motion first, or you want me to kick it off?
Yep, let's take a motion,
I make a motion to accept.
okay?
No,
Second?
Second.
Okay,
So Kevin has worked, he updated his bid spec sheet for the paving project. You have that in front of you. The way that we would advertise this is we would advertise it, we would put the bid out two ways. We would advertise in the paper, but we would also send an email, direct email to the businesses that could bid on a project like this. And that would be primarily, Northeast Paving, formerly Lane, Soderberg, Trumbull, and
Steelstone.
Steelstone. I can't imagine he'd come up here from Holton, but,
But,
we could put it out there. So I think what works good, and I've done this in the past, is we do this with the heating oil bids that we put out for each year. I email the package to all of the businesses, all at the same time. So they all see who's getting the email and the bid spec. And I put a tracking on the email, so I make sure that they send a receipt, delivery receipt, request read, and we put a delivery receipt, so I have tracking on that. So I know that everybody's gotten the bid spec. So we advertise, plus we do it that way. And I think it puts, it makes everybody aware who's gotten the bid spec, as opposed to just advertising it and coming to pick it up at the town office or Public Works, and then they would all be wondering who picked up the bid spec or not. So,
discussion? Who was the third company you mentioned there?
well, the fourth was Steelstone, but they're out of Holton,
Steel,
Steelstone Industries.
Northeast, Soderberg, Steel, Stone as well?
Trumbull.
Any other discussion on the,
You have questions for Kevin? I mean, he's,
Kev, yeah,
Who's your man?
anything else that we need to question on? Any comments, you wanna have anything you wanna say?
No, I'm looking forward to moving this forward, because we've had a lot of people with concerns that our roads are terrible or they're degrading as we speak. And this winter so far, with the freezing and thawing out of the roads, it's taken a terrible beating. So I'm hoping that, we can move forward and get that started. It'll be a 2-year project. We're hoping to do the back roads next year and partial in town as much as we can, and then the following year prepare the streets with the manholes and catch basins, and then after that finish it up. So everything's specified in there, how that's gonna be built out, that when they finish the first half of the project and it's been inspected, they will receive payment for that, and then when the complete project is finished, then they will receive the second half that will pay off the project.
And how does the inspection process work there? How do you inspect that, or do you have somebody from the state, or how do you?
Usually it's myself or somebody that I designate, but most of the time it's myself. And the inspection goes as they're doing the job, to make sure that they're putting down proper thickness, and that they're preparing the right way, and they're not cutting corners, the mix is up to temperature and all that stuff, the tack is being put down. And then after that, a lot of that will be just when it's done, to make sure that water drains, the crown of the road is made so the water drains out of the road into where it's supposed to go, and everything is up to spec. It's not all bumpy, or there's missing pieces of hot top, or there's like chunks that didn't stick or something like that.
Okay.
I'd like to add a little bit to that too, if from moving aside, away from the bid spec part of it, if you guys are, unless you have more questions for him.
He knows what he's doing.
I think he's underpaid.
So from the project state, so what we would do is if the board is okay with the bid spec, we would advertise that in next week's paper. So we can get the ball rolling on that. The financing, the financing side of this, because we had talked about going out to the bond bank in the fall. So we can get out of this tax year's commitment, if we incur this loan before July 1, you know, we're gonna incur that next payment in the next fiscal year. If we wait until November, we push off that payment one whole year, and that's sort of how we kind of cash flowed and turned out some loans to try to mitigate the increase. In order to do that, what we're gonna have to do is do some interim financing, okay? And so there's two things that are gonna happen. No matter what, we gotta do bond counsel for a loan like this. So we would have to engage our attorneys. That would be paid for through the part of the proceeds of the approved by the town, the $3 million project. We would have to do bond counsel, and we have to decide if we're gonna do interim financing. And with interim financing, typically we would go out to bid. The bond counsel would solicit banks who would be interested in providing interim financing. It's like a line of credit. So we take from it, you know, we would ask for up to $3 million. We'd only take what we would need to make payments. We apply with the bond bank. That kind of works hand in hand. We work with the bond bank. When we get our bond approved and given to us, you know, or deposited, the bond bank pays off the interim financing. So there's a little bit of cost associated with bond counsel. We don't have any choice, we have to do that. And there's gonna be a little bit of finance charge associated with the interim financing, but you would have finance charges if you incur that loan right away anyway. So it's almost a wash. So this would be the first step in this project. Moving forward, the first step was getting the authorization, getting the project scope, getting it approved, getting it through the board, the town meeting, the board's approved it, bid spec, we're going out to bid, and now I'm gonna have to get to work on bond counsel, interim financing, getting all that ready. So there's a lot of work to be done in that regard.
Yep.
I got a question. Would there be any penalties if that would be paid off early, that loan? I know some loans that they don't like to see that.
The bond bank, these kind of bonds are not, you cannot call a bond or pay it off early. Okay, that's when it has to reach maturity. And the reason for that is because those bonds are sold on the market. And so the bond bank, what they do is they aggregate projects like these. So they'll have our project potentially and 15 other municipal projects, and they put all that borrowing into one package and they sell that to investors. And the investors, when they bid on that, or they're taking that on with the expectation of a rate of return that, you know, that has to be met. So there's no way to pay that off or call it early. The alternative to the bond bank would be traditional lending. We could do it through a bank. Like right now we have one with Katahdin Trust. Under those terms, you could pay it off early. The trade-off would be that you're probably going to see some higher interest rates for that financing than you would at the bond bank. Potentially, you know, somewhere in a % or more.
Well, my biggest concern is that, you know, we had talked about that for a 15-year loan. And from what I've been seeing, you know, especially this winter, will 15 years be too far out there before we attempt to do something else? That's the concern that I have.
Well, the authorization that the town voter approved is for a 15-year term,
Yeah.
so.
So it is what it is.
Was it 15 or 10? I thought we,
We talked about 20, we brought it down to 15.
and that was that was the very reason.
That was the
We needed
reason
to
why.
cut it down.
For the longevity issue of it.
And the interest rates are like 1.75 right now or something. I mean, they're below 2 as far as I know.
I think they're down to the 1.375.
I'm just a little concerned about waiting till the fall.
While waiting, so that, and again, these are the things you can consider, is that either we can, no matter what, we have to wait till after July just to execute the loan, so we can kick that first payment off, that first annual payment into the next fiscal year. No matter what we do.
Right, because
Traditional
this
lending
year
or
we
the
don't have
bond.
that payment in our budget.
Right. So, but if you went with just going out to bid to a bank, and seeing what it turns out. I mean, you could always conceivably put out a bid package for this, and see what you could turn up for interest rates, and it might be the trade-off is that you might get a little bit of a higher percentage on the loan, but you'd have the ability to pay off early.
Right, and what's the dollar, like, sometimes a higher percentage rate in that case really doesn't cost you more. So we really have to,
With the
I mean,
idea.
I like the idea of interim financing and the bonding, but I don't see why we wouldn't want to shop around a little bit too. And then, the spring bonding, we're too late to look at that.
Well, the spring bond, then we would have that, we're not too late, but we would incur that payment.
Even if we only got that done in April or May, or saying the payment would be due before June 30.
Yeah. We have to wait till the next fiscal year.
So that would affect this year's coming up budget.
It would affect this year's coming budget. If we did it this year before June 30, we would have that payment in the next budget.
Well, yeah, but that might be okay, so why wouldn't we?
It-
Like I get that, but to me, that's kicking the can down the road, right? So why wouldn't we look at interest rates now, interest rates at the bank? Let's at least have that in front of us. I mean, maybe we can't finagle that into this coming budget, but I look at it as a perspective of, like, here I was part of making this huge decision, and if I'm not gonna be here next year, like, I don't wanna kick that can down the road to somebody else. I'd like to at least, like, try to be a part of making this work, so.
Well, you're gonna make it work.
Well, before we get carried too far here, I mean, is that not something that we can have brought up for an article for the next meeting?
It's nothing you need to act on.
Right,
Yeah,
because
sorry,
right now,
okay.
we're,
You know, this is
Okay.
more or less
This
like
is-
FYI, you know,
Right.
these are the things that we're gonna be looking at.
okay.
And so I'll have some options for you
Yeah,
guys.
I think that's worth looking at,
Okay.
especially today with the interest rates the way they are. Yep. All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the bid process. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Article 12, to discuss and consider the town's procedure for disposing of tax-acquired property.
So this was an action item to discuss. And so typically, it's spelled out here, this is how we kind of handle selling a tax-acquired property. The annual town meeting article that authorizes the board to dispose of tax-acquired property. And so I included the article there, Article 27 for taxes and Article 28 for sewer. Now, you'll notice, and there's a difference between the two in the language a little bit. Article 27 is different now because a couple of years ago, the legislature passed a law that creates a separate process for selling tax-acquired property for qualifying low-income taxpayers, senior low-income taxpayers, and there's a law that defines how we do that under Section 36, Maine Revised Statutes, subsection 943C. So our town meeting article does two things. It authorizes the board to dispose of the property in the best interest of the town, and on terms that they deem advisable and in the best interest of the town. And it also allows for the property to be redeemed by the prior owner. So when a property goes into tax foreclosure, it becomes town property, okay? It is essentially town property. It's an automatic thing that happens, automatic impending foreclosure of the lien. So at that point, this article basically says, well, before you put it out to bid, you gotta offer it back to the person who lost it. And so that's what we do. We send out a notice, we call, we formalize it in a letter saying, hey, you know, the board is going to be, has to do something with this property. You have a chance, 30 days, if you want to say 30 days to redeem. And what redeem means is you pay all of the taxes, the interest, and the fees, the lien fees, the registry fees, and all that stuff. If you pay all that off, we're gonna sign a quick claim deed and let you have it back. If they don't redeem the property within the period that you guys define, if it's 30 days, 45 days, the town meeting article doesn't say anything, it's silent on that, but let's say 30 days is what you want to say, and that's what we used on the last one we did. Then at that point, we put it out to bid. It goes in the paper. You can see this is what we put out the last time. And then we get bids. The board defines the terms. Minimum bid, you know, do you want a deposit on that? You can have special conditions on the quitclaim deed as part of the sale if you want. And I'll give you an example. We, right down here was formerly the Burgoyne house that was torn down. We sold that on a quitclaim deed, went out to bid. But we wanted to make sure that the house was dilapidated and beyond repair. And the board really wanted to make sure that that property got cleaned up, so we had some legal advice that said you can put terms on that quitclaim deed that says, these are the terms, you know, the property is yours as a high bidder, and then you shall clean up this property, remove the building, and clean up that site by a certain period of time. If they don't meet that criteria, it claws back, it comes back to the town. So those are kind of like a special condition that you could put on in a quitclaim deed. So that's in a nutshell, and then from there on, you know, the process kind of, you can see after, you know, we receive the payment, you know, the buyer will work with an attorney to draft a quitclaim deed. That gets done, comes to the town, we sign that off, they pay the bill. The accounting system prints out a lien discharge, that gets filed with the registry, and then the property becomes conveyed to either the prior owner, if they redeem it, or the highest bidder.
Yep, go ahead. Should we go?
Once that a property has been acquired by the town, once that's finalized, I would like to see something in writing as to the procedure for the bidding. I would like a reasonable time frame. I would like to see it posted locally so that everybody can see it. And I would like a minimum of 60 days to give people a chance to look at the property. And the reason for that is that throughout the years, many people have been accused of purchasing tax-acquired property illegally.
So do we have a process there?
No, there's no defined.
No,
There's no defined process
not.
here as far as,
we do not have anything in writing.
So can we make one? I mean, can we put that into a motion and actually have one drawn up? Is that within our bounds?
well, this article appears to me at this point as a discussion item. If we want to do an action on this thing,
Is a motion in order, Mr. Chairman?
I believe we could entertain a motion. Yeah, there's no reason why we
I
can't.
make a motion that once the town has acquired a, quote, tax-acquired property,
Yeah,
that a period of 60 days will lapse to give potential buyers or bidders opportunity to submit a bid.
so
To the town office.
technically, we would not be able to do anything with that property until 60 days have
Correct.
passed.
So you want us to post the bid and then wait
Yes,
60 days?
to give everybody a fair chance.
Right.
That way, there's no recourse to the town, to the Board of Selectmen saying, well, you know, there was preference given to, because personally, I was not happy with the last tax acquired property that we sold off at the last Selectmen meeting. But that's neither here nor there.
Right, we're on the motion
This
now.
is just for protection
Yep.
for the future.
So just to be clear, because you said wait 60 days, to be clear, we can post the bid immediately, but the bid has to be open for 60 days, is what you're saying?
Bidding, period.
The bid period would be 60 days.
Bidding period of 60 days.
So we have a motion, once the town has acquired the property, that the bidding will be open for 60 days. Do we have a
Minimum of
set-
60 days.
Could,
Up to 60 days.
can we add, so the newspaper issue, I know we're not supposed to discuss, but I don't know if we could add, the issue of only advertising in the newspaper has been a complaint for a while. I don't know what other options we would have. Does that need to be part of a procedure to, cause that's the complaint I get all the time. People don't read the paper.
Don't see it?
I agree.
So can we just add like an amend the advertising and then we could figure out how to do it? I mean, I know we have a new
Yeah.
thing coming that maybe
Right.
that'll work.
Well, I think that you would still have to do the newspaper.
Yeah,
Like,
but
from a legal
there's
notice
gonna be
perspective.
another way to get that information out to people, I guess.
For further discussion at a later date.
Okay,
I believe that we
Okay.
might have that ability to do that.
yeah, soon, okay, so we'll
All
skip
right.
that, forget that, then I'll second Dan's,
Okay.
motion.
All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries.
Could we have that as on our list of items that Natalie's
Action items?
keeping for us?
Like an
to,
action item?
To just discuss the advertising process, for everything really, for job, openings and for, I think we need to find a new avenue for some of that.
Newspapers are taking it.
Years ago, it was a simple process. Today, you have to kind of put it out there in a multitude of ways to get to everybody.
Just limiting yourself to
Yep.
just this area.
All right, so we're talking what, Article 12? Article 13? To discuss the board member considerations for potential business opportunities in the town of Madawaska.
That was mine for looking into some sort of a laundromat for this town. We have none. And I mean, we're gonna have a construction soon. These people will need a place to wash their clothes. Where are they gonna go? Even if they go to Fort Kent, I don't even think she's open on weekends and she closes at 5. And, I don't know, that would be a good business opportunity for somebody. And also I think we're in a need for a veterinarian, whether it's mobile or something, because a lot of people have to go all the way to Brewer for emergencies. Because the existing vets around the area won't take their pets.
If you're not a client.
They're not a client. So those are my, I don't know where to venture off to get this info, but, it's gotta be somebody out there that wants to do this.
So who do we have to, okay, sorry, Lori.
Well, can I have a motion first to keep discussing this?
I make a motion to
All right.
continue discussion.
A second? Okay, let's keep going.
So I wonder if, okay, so I'm of the viewpoint usually that, you know, the business opportunities, have to come from the private sector and it's really hard for the town with, you know, to drive a lot of that. But there's no reason we can't, you know, be looking. But the first thing that came to mind with the laundry, like you're saying, I mean, maybe we could try to give the idea to the businesses first, like maybe we could talk to the inn and the motel and the gateway, and maybe one of them would wanna offer that service. And then if they don't want to do it, I know this might sound crazy, but it's just an idea that might trigger someone else. I mean, there are washers and dryers at the school for uniforms, I think, or no? I know, like, Fort Kent used to have that, maybe there could be a fundraiser and the kids could, I don't know. I don't know that we're gonna
No, I know
You
it's
know,
not
it's
up
hard
to
to
us,
find-
but it's just, it's a need, it's a definite need.
Yes, it's a definite need. Another one in Caribou closed, and like, it's just not a money maker. I don't know if there's a chain of that we could contact to see, but,
You know, I mean, I believe anyway that it becomes very difficult for the town, for the municipality to get involved in trying to find a business or trying to finance a business or,
I just wonder through our, what we're gonna be rolling out here for our social media platform, if we had a section there
for me,
that would sort of, people could go to and say, you know, this, we would call it, like where there's no, places where we think that there's a need for businesses that don't exist right now in the
Yeah.
area. And we could just kind of say like, hey, potential business opportunities, like, you know, there's none of these in the area. This, and this. And then people can kind of look at that and, you know, and we could add to that, we can take away from it, you know, as things change. And
Jason,
it's something that people could kind of, it would be a place to post stuff like that.
I would tend to want to question you about how we would go about doing that if it could be done in that social media platform that we're working on.
Definitely could, yeah.
could we do like a survey thing too, that maybe if, like, you know, maybe if we did a survey and 20 people said they need a laundromat, then someone else would see that and say, oh, like, you know, there's an opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely possible.
Or something, because I can't imagine what these people are gonna do for clothes, to wash their clothes.
Manuel's Laundry Service.
There you go.
I don't know.
I don't know how to approach this other than what, to table this? I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm not, it was
it's
just for discussion, maybe
Well, I think-
somebody hearing us, maybe they'll want to start.
Well, first of all, I mean, people are listening.
Yeah,
and
hopefully somebody will
it's
want to
gonna
start
bring in
something.
awareness.
Yeah.
You know, there may be a possibility there, so somebody might be listening and saying, hey, you know, wow.
The vet is definitely an issue.
I know, it's such a big thing, we're so remote. It's sad that we
Okay,
have that mobile.
so we'll leave that as it is for now.
That's all I have.
Article 14, to discuss board member considerations for FY '22 Town of Madawaska budget. Fiscal year '22.
So I'll kind of kick it off a little bit, if you don't mind. Carol, I talked to Carol today, and most of the departments have turned in their budgets. There's still a little bit of work to do, but we'll be ready to go. I think we're going to schedule, we typically, myself and the finance director, will sit down with the department heads one-on-one, and we'll go over their budget, make sure everything's in place and we're not missing something, and there are no errors. So we're going to start scheduling that with our department heads next week. Meeting with them one-on-one, it shouldn't take too long to do that. And then at that point, I think we're gonna be ready to put something before the board. And I think we want to talk about considerations for budget moving forward, and then also talk about maybe setting some budget meeting dates.
Okay. We need to move on that, so we're not at the last minute doing our budgets.
Any other discussion here?
No, just that we should get started, the sooner the better.
Sooner the better. Carol, anything else you want to add?
No.
Nope. Good to go?
I think in the next meeting, could we, confirm with Jessica Blaylock that she does want to be on the finance committee, and see if, the board would like to approve her, or if you have someone else that, you know, if someone's listening, we're short one member, right?
Right.
Other than Jessica, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if someone else is interested. Jessica, I believe will, be happy to do it if, you know, unless
So we
someone
can
else.
put the,
And then if, I don't know, if 2 or 3 people step up, then I don't know what we do.
well, at our
Maybe
next
just make
board
the
meeting,
committee bigger?
we could have, you guys could appoint the, because it's typically from the floor of the town meeting, but nobody stepped up to do
Right.
it. So you guys would be
Approve.
able to appoint.
Mhm.
So we could put that on an agenda item for the next meeting, to appoint somebody, and Jessica's interested, and there might be somebody else that will listen, who's hearing this, that would offer up as well, and you guys would be able to
Be
do that.
nice to get a couple.
Well, I think to pick from, or we only need one,
Yeah.
so.
I don't know, Jessica.
If more than one person wants to jump on board, the finance committee was voted on at town meeting, right? So we don't have any kind of opportunity to choose the makeup of that committee, or we?
No.
No. So we couldn't add 2 or 3 people if we wanted to?
No.
Okay.
All right, no action on this article, other than what we discussed. Article 15. To consider union labor negotiations with the Madawaska Police Department / New England Police Benevolent Association, Inc. Executive session recommended, 1 MRSA subsection 405 6D. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor of going into executive session? Okay.
Just you?
No, everybody else.
I need a motion to come out of executive session.
I make the motion to come out of executive session.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
And so I would make a motion to table the discussion of labor negotiations to be discussed further as part of the police department budget as a whole.
We have a motion, so do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor, second by Jason. All in favor? Opposed? Motion will carry.
Can keep the clips, you bring down your budget for your office supply.
Classified.
I don't mind right there, sorry. More than you two. Sorry.
Moving on to Article 16.
Did you want to do Article 4? It's
Well, I was gonna come in after your,
Manager's report?
yep,
Okay. So you have your manager's report that I did over the weekend, and submitted to you by email and then today. The deputy clerk position that we advertised for, myself, the HR director, and Natalie, the clerk, we interviewed 7 applicants for the open position last week over a course of 2 days, and they were all done via Zoom. One was done by phone because we lost power, and we ended up finishing that off on a cell phone conference call. And we indicated here, I worked on this over the weekend, but on Monday we made a decision to offer the position. We offered the position to Roxy, not in here, but Roxy Levac. She works at Chop and Save. And she's gonna give a 2 weeks notice, and she's gonna start work for us in a couple weeks. The 16th?
It's a holiday, isn't it? Or, no, the 16th is Tuesday. Sorry,
More
I
or
take it
less.
back.
The town CDBG facades program. So working with Joella Terrio at NDC, she sent some packets for the facade program. I went, and it was sort of redundant, but I did go ahead and canvass the main street between 6th Ave and 16th Ave. That's the project scope area. So I put out 28 program applications to interested persons and businesses. I went up and down Main Street. For the ones that I couldn't get in touch with in person, I had conversations over the phone, or in a couple of instances, gave the applicants to, like, the applications to the tenants, or the ones leasing the building from the owners, and asked them to forward the applications to the person who owns the building. To assist with the applications, we offered a Zoom meeting, PowerPoint presentation for Q&A. We did that last Wednesday at 6 p.m. We sent out email notices the week before, sent a reminder that morning. Only 3 people attended the meeting. I actually had to call people. We had a technical issue with the Zoom link. Somebody was emailing me, Pat Lawyer was emailing me on that, and I had to send out a new link. But I ended up, when I worked on I have like a list of all the businesses, and I have all their contact information, their email, their cell phones and whatnot. So I went through and I called quite a bit of people to get them on, and I was able to get 3 people to attend the Zoom meeting, so which was good. It was good and informative for them. We extended the application deadline to February 12th to give people more time to prepare their applications, and we have 4 applications to the program up to date. We anticipate that we're going to get some more.
That's impressive. You have 4 right now that are interested.
They have their applications into us, and we actually worked with them a little bit through the Zoom meeting. We had, interestingly, we had one business on one end of the project over on Mill Street in Maine, And on this end of the project, I'm not gonna identify them, but who are on an intersection, and so they qualify to do whatever shows from Main Street. So if you're on an intersection, you could actually do not just the front, but a side as well. So, two of them were interested in maybe, after we explain that to them, were maybe interested in updating their application to do that. And so one of them decided to leave it as is, and there's another one that's modifying their application to do two sides. Any questions on that? No? Our 2021 CDBG Downtown Revitalization Grant application. So the one, when we first kicked off this downtown revitalization project, we had applied for a $300,000 CDBG grant to do the project. And so we were not approved the first time, but we were, told that, apply next year. You have a good application, but it was kind of, gave us a place mark for the following year. So the following year we applied, and we were awarded sort of a split with another town, and we ended up with $100,000. And we decided to put that towards the facade program. So that CDBG grant application is funding, downtown revitalization grant under that program is funding facades. This one right here, they told us at the time, because we would agree to work with them to accept 100 rather than the 3. They kind of pitched that to both us and the town of City of Sanford, that they would give us an opportunity to reapply soon. And so we're following up on that promise that we're going to put in for another $300,000 for CDBG, downtown revitalization grant, and that would be used primarily for the redevelopment of the shopping plaza project that we're kind of working on there. If that comes to fruition.
Yes.
Will that qualify as part of our match?
Towards the other stuff that we're applying for?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Mhm. That's the gist of it.
Okay.
The Madawaska Land Port of Entry project was awarded to J&J Construction on January 19th. The contract amount was for $49,907,000. J&J Contractors is the same firm that constructed Van Buren and Callis Land Ports of Entry. I don't know who the other bidders were. I know Chimbro was a big player on that one, and I hear there was quite a difference. I don't necessarily see what the bids were, but I heard there was quite a difference in price between them and the next bidder. And I know that the project, GSA was projecting that to be a $65 million project, so they're doing good at 49 million or 50 million. Questions on that? Pollution control laborer position. You can recall Mark, the supervisor there, wanted to kind of, when Walt retired, wanted to leave that position open because of all the work that was going on there with the upgrades. He just didn't feel like it wasn't a good time to train, and he didn't have a need for that employee at that time, so he wanted to push off that filling of that position. And so he started that looking, and then we advertised twice. We didn't get a lot of applications. We got applications the first time. We had a lot of people that withdrew their applications. So last week we interviewed one candidate with a decision pending this week. So Mark, we took the weekend to think about it. HR, myself, and Mark interviewed the candidate last week. And we decided that we were going to take the weekend to think about it. And so Mark informed me that he was comfortable with the candidate, and he offered a position to candidate, and then the name slips my mind, but I'll get that to you in an email. Recreation, any questions on that? No. Recreation Department vacancy. Jeff Markey, who's been with us for a little while, announced his resignation to the Rec Department effective February 1. Jeff took a position with the Crystal Utilities Department. So talked to Sam about it in light of what's going on right now with activities and COVID and stuff, I told him that we were gonna keep that position vacant for the time being. We'll have discussions about that position moving forward. Questions? That's it for my manager's report.
Just a quick question, and you might have an answer here or not, but the land port of entry, are you in the loop as far as, how and when they're gonna start this?
Spring,
This spring?
and I can't tell you exactly, well, what, the land port of entry, I'm not so sure. They haven't really announced the start date. The bridge is gonna start, this spring,
Yep,
you know, April, May, whatever.
yep.
And it's my understanding, they've always said all along, and if you go on the website for the project update on MDOT's hosting their website on this project is also taking care of the land port of entry as well. And they've always announced that the two projects are gonna be running concurrent to each other. So I would anticipate that, you know, might not necessarily start right when the bridge starts, but it's gonna be right around that same time. I don't have a specific date for you though.
Fine. Anybody else have any questions for Gary? Okay, no action needed here. Back to Article 4. Other business board member updates. Do we have anybody for,
Mine was, I had received an email at the town email, one from Mr. Michael Fortin regarding snowmobile issues that he has.
yeah,
Are they allowed to travel that long on a roadway? Where are they going?
they're going to the trail itself. I mean, there's a trail there that begins right at the end of Dion Drive, and as it was explained to me by the snowmobile club, this is a temporary way for them to get to that trail till next year. And it sounds like they have permission from some of the landowners to be able to move their trails, but not, it won't happen this year, it's gonna be next year, so,
Because they're
yeah.
not supposed to exceed more than 500 feet on the public way.
I don't really know what the
Well, that's
distance
the
is.
state law, I looked it up today. It
No,
says-
but I mean, the distance that's there now.
Well, the street itself, if they're traveling right on Dion Street, that's a good length. Where, that's just my thing, is they're leaving from that end, where are they going to which other area?
You know,
I mean, we'll have the same issue as we had with the sidewalk, traveling from the snowmobile issue we had last year with, Pete Williams.
you know, I don't know how much of a distance we're talking about. Is it Fonjami, Mr. Fonjami, I forget his first name there, but I mean, I don't know that the trail goes more than 500 feet right on Dion Drive. It doesn't go all the way through, sure. There's no way that it goes in, yeah, go
There
ahead.
is a trail that crosses Dion Drive, and if you're heading towards the Mazzacazien, or no, not Mazzacazien, the blue one there,
Paramount is.
Paramount State,
Yeah,
it's probably from here to Gary of the road, maybe twice that distance is where the trail crosses the road. So there is a trail there. Where are they coming onto the road? I know.
you know, and that's a question that
Okay, I
I don't know if I could answer that either, I mean, but really, that section is actually groomed, I'm thinking, by the snowmobile club.
Right,
There's
and I
a
know
group-
that's not
there's a-
really our issue is what the snowmobile club does, but I have an issue with the public right of way. If it's excessive of what the state law says, excessive speed, it's dangerous. I mean, they zoom off that and they wanna go fast, but you got people living there.
You know what,
I know they go fast on Legion,
Yeah.
where I live, so I can just imagine on a straightaway and.
I did reach out and did advise Mr. Fortin that I was trying to seek more information on just how abusive some of these snowmobilers are. I did reach out to one that lives on that street, and I believe he was telling me that he didn't have any issues. I was hoping to be able to reach out to at least one more before I reported back to the board and back to him, just so I would have at least 2 or 3 people that I spoke to. But at this point, I mean, it's been just the 2, and I'm hoping to reach out to one more. But if you tell me that that trail is more than 500 feet on the road, I can't dispute that, I don't know if it
I
is or if
really
it
don't
isn't.
know either, I didn't go take a
Yep.
physical ride, but
But certainly he has sent a letter of
Is it
complaint.
500 feet or 500 yards?
oh lord.
I think
I
it's
have to
500
print
feet
it
is
out.
not far.
I think it's 500 yards.
It's 1,500 feet.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1,500 feet.
1,500 feet.
The length of that, sorry, I'm asking you a question, the length of the street?
Go ahead, Mr. Daigle.
I have spoken with Mr. Fortin on multiple occasions. I sat with Mr. Fortin again today, went to visit the site. Mr. Fortin, his primary concern is the speed. He has been in contact with the president of the Madawaska Snowmobile Club on 2 separate occasions, and the problem continues. This morning, Mr. Fortin actually went out on the trail, at the end of the street, and he signaled, hand signaled the snowmobilers to slow down, only to get flipped the bird. So he said, no, and then they zoomed right by. So we actually do have an issue there, we have a safety issue, and it needs to be addressed. Now, I don't know if it's a town responsibility, if it's a snowmobile club responsibility, law enforcement, whether it be our local police or inland fisheries and wildlife. But this problem needs to be addressed, and it needs to be corrected.
So, Mr. Fortin's complaint is that they're going too fast?
Correct. The response from the president of the snowmobile club is that this is going to have to be self-policed. So if the self-policing isn't working, there may come a time where that trail will have to be closed.
Yep, go
So I
ahead.
make a recommendation that we ask the police department to look into it, because I believe it might fall into their jurisdiction, because it is on public road,
Right.
to just monitor it and, you know, give tickets if they have to.
Mr. Fortin certainly made me aware that these machines are also running at odd hours, which is a big issue for him. You know, they're running at 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and that's an issue, and they're also running early in the morning. So I don't know how we're gonna be able to really control that situation. And we're, at the end of January here, so we still have a good 2 months to deal with when it comes to snowmobiling. So I do believe that we could ask the police department at least to I don't know if they have any like motion cameras or something that they could at least pick up what's going on that street, so we could actually see, you know, if there's some issues. So let's try to address the police department with that issue for the time being, and see if there's something they can do. All right?
And his other issue is regarding snow.
Same gentleman?
Same gentleman, Mr. Fortin. He wants to know, is it customarily for the snow plow driver to lift his wing and adjust his sweeper when he gets to the last 2 houses on Dion Street? At approximately 9 a.m. this morning, I was cutting back the snow bank between my neighbor's house and mine when I noticed that the plow truck had stopped before getting to Mrs. Dion's driveway, and heard the wing being lifted, then heard the sweeper being adjusted afterwards. He then continued down the rest of the way, pushing the snow to the driver's side of the road, referencing which side the snow was being pushed to. He then turned around and put his wing down and readjusted his sweeper, then plowed all the snow to the left to include the snow that he had just put in the middle of the road. Here I was wondering why the snowbank in my driveway was always bigger than what was across the street for most of the season. Now I know why. Earlier this year, I spoke to you in regards to, and this was sent to you, Gary, I believe, regards to Gil Bogwin putting his snow in the truck turnaround. This morning, I took 2 pictures of Gil dumping multiple loads of snow in the truck turnaround. He's pretty good about avoiding doing this, but this morning when I went outside to start cleaning my driveway, I noticed that Gil had placed a large amount of snow in the road while using a scoop to clear his driveway. When the plow truck came around 5:30 6:36 a.m. He did 2 passes on that side of the road, which might have made Gil angry because Gil now has a large snowbank to deal with. This is when Gil used his tractor to dump multiple loads of snow in his truck turnaround area. Includes 2 pictures that he took this morning of Gil dumping his snow there. By Mike Fortin. So I'm just bringing it up because he asked me to, so I don't know what's going on with snow.
I guess that would be maybe a question for Kevin, see how they actually make that turnaround. Does anybody have any idea how to address this? I mean, I don't have any idea.
I've seen the trucks do all kinds of different things to manage where they put the snow so they can turn around without making a mess everywhere. So yeah, I've seen them do weird things in different places, but it's basically because they need to do that to get around and not leave a bunch of snow in the middle of the road when they do their turnaround.
Right.
As far as other people dumping snow in other people's places or in turnarounds, I hate to say it again, but I think that would be a police department issue because we do have certain snow dumping policies in the town, or ordinances, I would say. So if it's against one of the ordinances, then I guess something should definitely be addressed.
I believe the ordinance is in place that they're, as far as snow dumping in the roads, especially after the plow's gone by, is that not correct?
The state law.
Just a state law. So then again, it falls back on the police department to enforce.
Yeah.
So we would have to address the police again to take a look at that corner.
This is a perennial discussion. And it's tough because there are people that live on an intersection and they get all of the snow dumped and this truck comes around and, you know, and there are people that just have no place to put snow. And you have people that abuse pushing snow where they're not supposed to. I mean, we've had people, you know, the water district has to keep their hydrants open, you know, and for a while, you know, the police officers were chasing people filling in the fire hydrant clean out spots, you know? And so there are people who, I think that we try to approach these situations with some level of diplomacy and understanding of the uniqueness of the situation. We do have a policy that, you know, we don't allow people to push their snow into the road or across the road or because it's a cost to the town to take that snow away, a considerable one. But it's tough. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for the snow issues in this town. Okay, I've come to realize that, you know, and I wish there was a cure-all, a magic, something, you know. Unfortunately, sometimes there are people that take too much and you allow things to push snow, and there's people that will use that and way too much and abuse it, and then it causes the town to have to put in provisions to stop that from happening, and it might not be fair to other people, you know. So I've seen it, I've seen so much, I've seen people come to see me in desperation, and could you work with us, you know, God, I've got no place to put our snow, and we try to work with people. I've got other people who deliberately push their snow where they're not supposed to, and I've got other people who will come and say, you know, I've pictures of 3 people doing this, and I can't do it, and it's a really, really tough thing. I mean, it's one of the most challenging things that we deal with every year, honest to God. Winters are long, and when we have a lot of snow, we've had a couple of bad winters back to back, and that's still fresh in everybody's mind, and we've been lucky so far. We're starting to have some snow now, so I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that it's tough to come up with a one-size-fits-all approach to snow issues. I don't.
So it's fair to say that we certainly have some other complaints every now and then? Are you hearing that just verbally, or is that coming to you and?
I mean, we get complaints that are well-founded, you know, people, and because of the policies, it's tough on people that live in certain intersections and whatnot, and I get it, it's tough. We get complaints on people that live on straightaways and they just don't like the fact that they're getting snow pushed onto their lawn. Well, if you live on Main Street, if you live on US Route 1, and the state truck comes down through, all of that snow is coming in your driveway, and when the snowbank gets high at the road, they're gonna come back with their wing, and they're gonna
Push it
chop that
further.
off and dump all that in your driveway, and if your mailbox is buried, you're gonna lose your mailbox.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to deal with it, and that's the state, okay? I'm not saying that's necessarily what we wanna do here. I know that in winters, when there's a lot of snow, and you have blind areas, I know that Public Works tries very hard to accommodate, you know, residents whenever they can, and they work wherever they can to help residents and businesses. But there's always a person or somebody who's gonna fall back on that and say, well, you know, you did it for that one, you gotta do it for me. And then you have something that escalates to the level of the board, and then we're sitting here trying to figure out, is our policy good enough, or do we need to revise our policy? And it seems like every year, we just kind of get by with the things that we do on a case-by-case basis, but we don't have a really good plan. I can tell you that in other towns, they don't allow it, like snow, and it's cut and dry. So kudos to Public Works for Kevin and trying to make it work for everybody, for the town, for the taxpayers, for the residents, wherever they can, but it's tough.
Yeah, Mr. Daigle?
You know, I have to agree with Gary that, you know, we live in snow country, and there's no policy that'll fix every situation, but outside of this particular situation, Gary, are there any other areas that you know of immediately that are a problem? Complaints?
No, I think it's been okay so far this year, but we
Okay,
haven't
well,
really
would
gotten
it-
any snow yet.
Would it be possible for Kevin to go and speak with Mr. Fortin and Mr. Burgoyne and see if they can't come to some kind of agreement and get this behind us? And if they can't come to a resolution, bring it back to the board and we'll have to make some
So
hard decisions.
how would Kevin approach this now?
Some of it has to do with snow coming out of one driveway before the plow comes through. The plow comes, picks it up, and actually dumps it in the turnaround. But at times, in the process of turning around, some of it, when they're coming back, ends up in the other man's driveway, and I can understand his point and his frustration, but I think best case scenario, if the three of them, if Mr. Burgoyne, Mr. Fortin, and Kevin set up a time, discuss their desires and see if they can't come to an agreement and see how that works out. Does that make sense?
And that's diplomacy.
Yeah.
That's what we try to do whenever we can.
I think we can all agree that that's a reasonable request. Let's try to do that.
Okay.
Okay? I know that there's, some animosity there between neighbors, and so it's hard to settle things like this, but anyway, if Kevin gets in the middle of it and sees if there's something there that we can do to appease everybody. All right. Is that all you have?
Yeah, that was
Okay, what else? Do you have anybody else?
For public, for
Yeah.
other business, okay, yes. Pertaining to the wearing of masks at meetings, there are some differences of opinion, differences of interpretation, but I would request legal documentation. From my inquiry, it's, according to my legal counsel's interpretation, we fall under the same guidelines as restaurants, that once we have taken our seats, that the mask is no longer required, and that is verified by other boards in neighboring communities that are not wearing the masks at meetings. So all I'm asking is that at the next meeting, that we have legal documentation enforcing the wearing of masks throughout the meeting.
Sorry, yep.
Do you
I'm gonna
mean,
change the
do
seating
you
to that.
mean you want it in, no, you just have to pay attention. No, I'm just kidding. You mean you want it enforced or you don't? You would rather not wear it during the meeting?
I have other issues that the mask intensifies, and if I don't have to wear the mask, if we maintain social distancing according to the mandates, 6 feet, we're now 10 feet apart. The interpretation of one, but again, interpretations are interpretations. But I want documentation as to what the rules are, and if it is mandated beyond a reasonable doubt, I will come in by Zoom at further meetings.
I mean, do we just have to go to the next meeting? Can we just,
I don't,
I tend to think that he's right, and I just wonder if someone else has that opinion, or like, do we need to wait to have a legal, like if we just spread out a little further, can we accommodate that? Can we, cause listen, he brings his down to talk, it's might as well use, sorry, no offense, but you might as well not wear it. Yours is down, yours was down for part of the, I mean, it's really not effective anyway, so.
yep,
So I believe the mandate that covers this area is the mandate of wearing masks in public buildings. And I think that's what causes us to have to wear them. I, for one, prefer that the board does wear masks while they're here at the meeting, and if we were to not wear masks, I would not attend the meetings. I would do a remote session.
And the mandate for public buildings includes public grounds.
Okay, that's why I had that
Well,
question.
let's get some legal documentation. Next, we're ready for the next?
are we all set there, have you got that noted? Okay, go ahead.
Again, we touched earlier on budget season coming up. I had requested for this to be on the agenda, and I really don't know why it didn't appear on the agenda. I did submit this in writing pertaining to the selectmen's stipend. Is there a valid reason why it did not appear on the budget, on the agenda?
Just an oversight. Just an oversight on my part.
Certainly the stipends were given to all of the board members. I think, again, this is probably just an oversight.
Okay,
So you're concerned about the
Okay.
stipends as far as putting it on the agenda?
well, no. My point is this, we're coming into the budget season, and I think we're going to be looking to every department for some cuts in the budgets. And as town selectmen, I think that we are obligated to lead by example, and I make a motion that the selectmen forfeit their stipend for the remaining portion of this, what do we call it? Until the next election in June. And I think we're,
So we have a motion on the floor to cancel any of the stipends paid to the board of selectmen. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Do we have any discussion?
I mean, listen, I was looking at Gary because when I first came on board, when we were doing the budget, I had this discussion with you and you agreed. I wanted to eliminate that from the budget, and it was actually past board members who convinced me not to eliminate it from the budget, because there are some expenses incurred being on the board, and we might, talk other people out of running for the board, so that, that's why I didn't pursue it to remove it completely from the budget, or to at least cut it in half. So, I mean,
Anybody
I have
else? Go ahead.
no issue.
I think it's a small amount compared to the work that we do and the time we spend and the expenses that are incurred, and it may turn others away, even though it is a very small incentive, it may turn others away from wanting to be on the board and serving.
Well, if it becomes an expense for them to travel back and forth, or whatever else they might incur an expense to get to represent the town, it might stop them from running, yeah?
Don't forget too, it's not just about the meetings, the responsibilities, the meetings outside of board meetings, the subcommittee meetings, the valley recycling, the airport.
All the departments.
All the other meetings that you have to,
Yep.
that it's a commitment of time,
Yep.
and the stipend basically, you know, I think if you add it all up, you're not really making any money. Let's face it, that's for you guys to decide. My opinion is, it's gonna detract people from wanting to run for this board if there's no compensation there.
Yes,
That's not what the motion was, though. It was just to cut it till June, but, sorry.
discussion, yeah?
No? As far as discouraging people from running for office, if your heart and soul isn't into the well-being of this community, don't run for selectmen. When you're running for selectmen, you're not coming here to make money, you're coming here to make serious decisions.
Anybody else? So we do have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of discontinuing the stipend for the selectmen, please raise your hand. Opposed? Could I have a raise of hands again? Opposed?
Opposed, yeah.
Yep. So the motion is canceled. All right, what else do we have? Anybody else?
Yes?
Okay, wait, before you go any further, we need a motion here to go beyond the 2-hour mark.
I make a motion that we go further, seeing that the last meeting we went 5 hours, and I think that another 10 minutes.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Yep, all in favor? Okay,
Okay, at the last meeting, Mr. Paul Sear submitted by way of email a letter addressed to the town pertaining to public participation. Again, subject to interpretation, in a discussion with legal counsel, we are of the opinion, and this would be perfectly in order with the material that Mr. Paul Sears submitted, the statute, that in order for this, even with the St. John Valley Live, if the public does not have the opportunity to communicate with the board during public participation, this is deemed an illegal meeting because there is no room for public participation. We have to make it available to the public in some form or manner, and as of now, we have not done that, and we have not responded to Mr. Sear.
so if I understand what we're discussing, you would want like a phone line here available so that if people were gonna call in during this meeting, since this is a closed meeting, you would want them to be able to call in?
It has absolutely nothing to do with what I want. It has to do with what constitutes a legal public meeting.
Well, because of circumstances today, I don't know that, I mean, they're very circumstantial, what we're operating under right now.
Well, if you read Mr. Sears' material carefully, it is extremely well explained in his email.
I read it, yeah, yes, go ahead.
But I also provided Mr. Sear with a copy of the executive action that, and actually, it's not even the governor's, executive action, it's actual legislation that authorizes this format for these kinds of meetings. So I gave it to the board at the last
Yep.
meeting. The board had all the information. I also informed the board when Mr. Sears' email came in that I was gonna share that for public comment, because that's what he wanted. And then I went and I got the legislation, the statute that authorizes this, and I emailed it back to him, and I said the board's gonna consider your comment at the board meeting. But I did give them that legislative, the legislation that authorizes these types of meetings. I've not heard back from him.
So you did supply him with a copy of that also?
I did that the
Yep.
same day that.
So, and you have gotten no other response from him? So at this point, I mean, I don't see that this is a concern if Paul hasn't come back to us. Go ahead.
So it's not only Paul's concern, I think, I've heard it a few times, I think that the question that we could maybe get some clarification on is the interpretation of what the allowed form of communication is, because it talks about a digital format or some other format, and we're using email. And you can interpret that the email is good, or you can interpret it that,
I think we're confusing two things. Okay, the meeting has to be able to be viewed,
mhm,
and that's the live streaming part of it. The public comment part of that, okay, is, I think is a different thing.
right,
Okay, we're not talking about this, it's the same thing, but we're not really talking about the same thing. I think that, you know, what we do is we ask for those public comments in writing, in advance of the meeting, and then we read those out loud. So that's how the public participation, people get their chance to have their say, to voice their concern, it's done in writing, and then it's read out loud, and then you guys consider it. But the aspect of the meeting itself, it's, you know, streaming it like the way we're doing now.
well, okay. Let's just read that part again, okay, the part about the public being able to, be involved or speak with the board, because, I mean, I read it just today, and it can be subject to interpretation, and I'm not, I think we're fine, let's just make sure, let's just clarify it so that there is no more question.
Yeah. And it could be just a matter of just sending an agenda to the board, to MMA Legal, and saying, this is how we do it. This is the agenda, this is what we have our paragraph that talks about written comments, public participation, and how we stream the meeting, and say, does this satisfy the legal requirement? And they'll give us their legal opinion.
If email is in that list of options, if that's, you know.
Well, I mean, email comments to the town manager, I don't necessarily think it's just email, it could be comments in writing, it could be a phone call, and, you know, I jot that down and I give it to you, but.
Right, but some people's interpretation is that they need to be able to comment during the meeting, and that's what we really kind of have to clarify for people.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll seek legal counsel and get back to the board for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Daigle?
Okay, again, at our last meeting, I asked the question if I, as a selectman, I pointed out clearly from the MMA manual, the order that the town of Madawaska has selected for town government, known as the Town Selectmen Manager Rule. The town selectmen are at the very apex of that pyramid, and we see there that everything else falls under the Board of Selectmen. I asked at the last meeting if I would be allowed to attend the negotiations for the police officers as well as the Board of Appeals meeting, where at the meeting of the Board of Appeals, we have a situation there that is far from over. I have followed that case, if you will, from the very beginning, and I firmly believe that that is going to come back, according to protocol, on the lap of the town selectmen. I wanted to follow this very closely, and it was met with opposition. There were emails that went back and forth. Mr. Chairman, you were involved. Gary Picard, you were involved in trying to bar me from
Mr. Daigle, I don't remember ever sending out any emails. I don't remember anything of that nature.
I have a recording from the chief of police that I asked him if he was here at the Board of Appeals meeting to specifically keep Danny Daigle out of that meeting, and he said yes, and I have it on audio.
I don't recollect that at all.
I asked the chief, and I have it recorded, and Selectmen,
Well, I don't know what Mr. Dubois, what the chief is recollecting, but I can tell you that it certainly wasn't on my comments.
well, I asked the chief, under whose direction was he sent here to the Board of Appeals meeting to keep Danny Daigle out of the meeting. I said, was this at the town manager's request? And he said, no, I had that conversation with the chairman of the board, Doug Sear. And I have it recorded on audio, and Laurie got to listen to it.
Well, I mean, I can't question how Mr. Dubois remembers or what we had for a conversation. I mean, there was a discussion of making sure that things were going to be run in an orderly manner, and from what I heard, it was Mark Sear that requested that the police should be there. Now, again, that's all that I heard. I didn't talk to Mark directly, but that's how he got to be there. It was by the request of Mr. Sear, Mr. Mark Sear, not me. As far as I can remember.
Well, I honestly thought it said board chair, which would be board chair, Board of Appeals chair, so.
Long story short, as a Board of Selectmen member, if you do the research and if you check with legal counsel, you cannot prohibit a Board of Selectmen member from attending any board meeting that is in any form or manner connected to the town of Madawaska. Now, if you review Mr.
But you know, Mr. Daigle, I don't think anybody put any kind of request like that on you. Nobody questioned that.
Mr. Chairman, I have the floor for now, please. If you review the last meeting's live stream, when I asked permission to be at the Board of Appeals meeting, I asked to be there perfectly silently. Now, again, you have no authority to bar me from that, and the town manager, I have it here in the form of an email where he reaches out to the town attorney to see if we can't find a way to bar Danny Daigle from the meeting.
No, hold on now.
Well, I have it here.
No.
I have the floor.
Don't tee it up,
Hold on.
don't tee it up like that.
I have the floor. Mr. Chairman, I have the floor. This is a response from the town attorney, Mr. Edmund Barrer. In short, Mr. Daigle can participate in a meeting of the Board of Appeals, but he is not there as a representative of the town or the select board. He is there as a citizen, nothing more, nothing less. So I asked permission to be there
Why
as
would you
a,
ask permission? You're not representing the board. You're
no,
representing yourself, and there's no,
no,
I
but
don't
as
see.
a Board of Selectmen member, I have full right to sit in on a Board of Appeals meeting. Any meeting of the town of Madawaska,
Okay.
a Board of Selectmen, because of the form of government that we have. And if you want to argue this out in a court of law, I am prepared. I have
All I'm
some-
saying is that nobody stopped you.
You had a police officer there to keep me out.
I don't believe that to be the case. As far as the information that got to me, it was only to make sure that
So,
there
Mr.
was no,
Mr. Chair.
turmoil there. Go ahead.
If I may,
Yep.
the email that was sent to the attorney was asking them, the one that he's holding there, okay, the public participation of it. And the public participation portion of it is the same that we have here with our board meeting. There is an opportunity to view the meeting and an opportunity to provide public comment in writing. So if you read further into in Mr. Bear's email, he will confirm that if that's the manner that this is set forth for these proceedings under this COVID emergency, then that's the opportunity. The opportunity for you to be at the meeting would be just like any other citizen that the email said, you are just a normal citizen, to participate, to watch it on TV and submit your comments in writing before the meeting, for the Board of Appeals chairperson to read out loud. That's,
Go ahead, Mr. Boucher.
So I was at that meeting covering it for the media, I was live streaming the meeting, so when I arrived, I did hear some conversation of the Board of Appeals, who, because of the amount of people who were involved in the issue and the size of the room, they made the decision they didn't want any public involved, especially due to the nature, they didn't want any outside influence. There happened to be a police officer in the room, how he got here, I don't know, but the message to the officer was, we don't want any public in. I never at one point heard any names given. I specifically heard, it's a closed meeting, we don't want any public here, so.
All right,
That
I
was
mean,
the
I
decision.
again, don't see an issue here, I don't see a concern here, I don't think that the board acted here against the idea that you were gonna
Mr.
go.
Chairman, I have a statement to make.
I don't believe that there's anything here at this point that you can add to the story, I mean, we've heard it from,
I'm not going to add, but I want you to hear it from me. Because of the form of government that we are under, any Board of Selectmen member has full authority to attend any meeting that has any connection to the
Well, all
town
right,
of
so-
Madawaska.
All right, so I'm gonna end this right now. The one thing you should have done then is question Mr. Marks here, the chair of the Board of Appeals, if you could attend. I mean, other than that, there's no discussion here. There's nothing here that we need to
Okay,
discuss.
all right. Mr. Chairman, I understand that that's water under the bridge. I'm looking to the future. Now, you continually tell me, Mr. Daigle, we want to work with you, but you're the one that doesn't want to work with us. Now, from this point on, I want to hear it from this board, whether or not they will allow any board member to attend any meeting that has any connection to the town of Madawaska from this day forward. Yes or no?
I don't believe we have the authority to give you that.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Well,
You're gonna attend there as a citizen. You're not attending there.
no, because of the form of government, look it up in your MMA handbook. The Board of Selectmen is over all other agencies, department heads, committees. Look at it well, study it, it's well explained in the MMA handbook.
The situation that we are under right now is very circumstantial.
Well,
I mean,
Mr.
it's not normal, and this will probably be the only time that we're gonna have to deal with formats in this manner.
Well-
So again, I don't feel that there's any action here that we need to take.
No. You are an elected official. Now, it's as simple as saying, yes, our elected officials will have the opportunity to sit in quietly in other meetings, or you can entertain it in a court of law. It's your choice, Mr. Chairman.
I will entertain one more argument.
Under normal circumstances, this not being COVID, anybody could attend these meetings. But because of COVID, we're restricted, and you're not coming in as a board member, you're coming in as Joe citizen, and they're not allowing public.
Okay,
So
well,
this is the only point of contention is because it's COVID.
okay,
We're covered under that right now.
Okay.
Our hands are kind of tied, and we don't want to get
Okay,
fined
well,
and that, so
we-
that's the whole point.
okay, well, we'll challenge it in a court of law. I have a couple other items quickly. Pertaining to the emails, Lori was kind enough to print off some of the emails. I was given an iPad to receive the emails. It was set up that the password would be quite simple. I know nothing about that end of the business. My wife was able to get some of the emails, and then she went on to tell me that it had to do with the code and the password. I did talk to Natalie about it, and she said, yes, very possible. So that's why that I requested from her today, or yesterday rather, to forward me some emails during a certain time frame. At our last meeting, Chief of Police Ross Dubois was here, and because I voiced opposition and I voted against putting out requests or bids or whatever they call it for a new cruiser, I'm opposed to that. I was then, I am tonight, and I forever will be. Mr. Ross Dubois, and this is not the first time that a selectman is hand-delivered the agenda for the upcoming meeting by the police officers. This is not the first time. So, Mr. Ross Dubois sends an email to Gary. Good morning, Gary. In reference to Selectman Daigle's concern about reducing the mileage on the police vehicles, we have determined that hand-delivering Selectman Daigle's agenda packet to his residence on Guyana Road is an unnecessary expense we are incurring. We will be eliminating this needless service moving forward. Thank you, Ross. I find this to be very infantile, very immature, very unprofessional, and until we can get the iPad situation rectified, I am looking to this board to order Mr. Ross Dubois or his patrolman to continue to deliver the agenda to my personal residence, and I will be more than glad to pay for the fuel.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that this board tells the police chief that he will continue to deliver by himself or a patrolman to Danny Daigle's residence until the situation with the iPad and the reception on Guyana Road can be rectified.
Do I have a second?
Do we need that, or are you gonna
As a
talk
board, we
to?
can't make that motion because the direction of the board, the department heads falls under him, so as a board, we can't do that.
So you'll talk to Ross about it, or?
It's the will of this board, the consensus of this board, if that's what they want, then I will.
This board is the boss of the police department.
I will express that.
If you change your motion to ask the town manager to tell him, then we can vote on that.
Okay, I amend my motion that this board directs the town manager to order the police chief to continue to deliver, as they have been since last June, the agenda to Danny Daigle's personal residence until we can get the iPad situation rectified.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Are we ready to adjourn?
Oh, we have,
We have other business.
Oh, there's something else out there?
yes, you're done? You have your
I have a
gym.
couple of items there.
Okay,
Part of
I don't
the-
have anything else in front of me, but I know
It's
that,
there.
The
There's
fitness-
somewhere.
The
Nope.
fitness, yeah, it's in there somewhere, the fitness center.
anyway, go ahead, let's go ahead and deal with it.
Here, I think I got an extra,
This is a request or information from Sam?
yeah, so did you find it?
No?
You got-
I've read it, so if you can,
It's in your pile somewhere.
Yep. Okay.
You're gonna read the article? On the first page?
On the first page,
the bottom.
other business, oh yes, okay. To consider request to reopen the fitness center.
So we've received correspondence on this over the period that we've been closed. The most recent one was on January 31 from Mariah Toussaint. She's requesting that we reopen the fitness center. And so we've received quite a bit of inquiries to the fitness center about reopening, and people would really like to get back to that. Sam was not able to make it here tonight. I had asked him to come, but he had another commitment. So I asked him to kind of give me his take in an email, a little narrative of his thoughts for you guys to consider. I put that email in front of you that he gave me today, on his thoughts about opening the fitness center. So with that said, talk.
Okay, any, go ahead.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion that we consider reopening the fitness center, but keep it closed 2 days a week to facilitate the separation between people going in and the cleaning crew coming in. That would be my motion.
So the motion again would read that out of a 7-day period, that you would close it down 2 days out of the week for cleaning?
I would consider Mondays and Thursdays, let's say, so that gives a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weekend
Yep.
to use the gym. Monday morning, the gym is closed, so that in the afternoon, the cleaning crew can go in. That adds some separation to any contamination. Not perfect, but it adds some separation. It ensures nobody's in the gym while the cleaning crew goes in there and can continue to protect themselves. Then it would be open Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday would be another cleaning day, and then you'd have your weekend again. And I mean, those days, maybe the cleaning crew can give us a better idea of what would work best for them, but
Right.
I think try to maintain separation between, you know what I mean, the people going in there and the cleaning crew, that we're kind of telling them, you have to go in there and clean this area.
Which would be done by the rec department?
Yeah,
We would possibly ask the users to try to clean it themselves a little bit more, just be aware of your situation, that if you sweat on the machine, out of respect, clean it up, and
Yep.
to try to mitigate how much cleaning needs to be done by the cleaning crew, but I think the crew that used to clean it can continue.
How did you consider that thought?
Well, I'll
Well-
second it, just
All
for
right,
the
so let's
point,
have a second so we
point
can
of
keep.
discussion.
Yep, sorry.
But, no,
Yep.
it's fine.
Yep. So how did you come by that decision that, 2 days out of the week would be sufficient? I mean, it was just a thought, or?
It's kind of a compromise, or I'm not the professional to identify what the best time frame would be.
Right,
If it was up to me, I would say, well, hey, we're keeping everything else closed for the protection of our employees, let's leave it closed. But I do see a need for the gym to be open. I did have a conversation with some gym members, and one of the items came up today actually was, why don't you offer so-and-so gym member 20% off, 30% off their membership to make them responsible for cleaning, and you can do this with 2 or 3. And then you'd have a sign-in sheet, you sign in to say this, it was clean on this day. That is an option, but then you're dealing with, well, did they do a good job, what did they miss, did they actually go in or just sign, So I thought, if we're gonna reopen the gym, who better to clean it than the people who know how to clean it properly and have the proper tools and you know what I mean? And then just try to maintain some separation. The ideal goal for me was probably close it 3 days a week to give more of a it's open Monday and then, close the day. And, I came up with the conclusion that I think 2 days a week we kind of separate it evenly, where 3-day weekend closed, 2 days closed, 3-day weekend,
which I think could be a good compromise. Yes, Mr. Daigle?
I totally disagree with that for the simple reason that this is my thinking on that. You know, if you're open Monday, Tuesday, and you're closing Wednesday, well, Monday, Tuesday, you get somebody that sweats like a pig on something and doesn't clean it up, well, you know, you got Monday, Tuesday contamination, you close one day, that one day is not gonna clean up any potential infection there. And my stand is that those people that are terrified of COVID at the gym, stay home.
And I'm less concerned about the people who have signed waivers and say, I'm ready to go to the gym, I feel safe. I'm less worried about those people, and I'm more worried about the town staff, that we're not giving an option. We're saying, that's part of your job, you gotta go clean up this location.
Right.
Those are the people that I'm concerned about more. What happens if this employee gets sick, and the recreation department, who's in charge of cleaning that, is already down one employee. So if they lose their second employee to COVID, we're not just closing the gym back, we're causing a lot of other things that these maintenance people do to shut down as well. So like I said, I'm more worried about the maintenance staff than anything else.
Yes, Lori?
I originally had voted or had concerns about closing it because I was told by some gym members that other people were not following the rules. They weren't wearing a mask, they weren't cleaning up after themselves, they were, you know, so that, I mean, if people are going to agree to follow the rules, I disagree with making any kind of schedule. I think we have a message here from Sam saying that he feels they could reopen. I think that should be the decision of the director of the department, what their cleaning schedule might be. We have, you know, a lot of staff members within the town that are all doing their job and they're working, like the police and the ambulance and, you know, Public Works is out doing what they gotta do. Just my opinion, I think I would reopen, but I would just let Sam and his crew make their own decision about how they're gonna clean or when they're gonna clean, and they can put a schedule out there. And because if you pick certain days, you say you're closed Monday, Thursday, what if that's the only 2 days that, you know, the one person that really wants to go is working, or like, I don't know, I don't think it's for me to tell them how to do their job. I'm just gonna,
I will say that, and I'm glad you pointed out that the members are responsible to clean up after themselves, to clean their
Yes.
piece of equipment. We
Yes.
provide them everything that they need to do that. And that's part of the agreement, that, you know, we don't staff that to save costs. It's on an honor kind of system, and when you sign that agreement to be a member of the gym, you're gonna take care of the equipment that you use. And so if there are people that aren't cleaning the equipment, and we get a report of it, you know, by somebody who sees it and they have to make a complaint about it, if we can get a report of it, then we could address that user and say, you know, you really need to step up. But I think, you know, the membership, the users that have concerns about others that might not be necessarily following protocol, should have an opportunity to, through a complaint, and we do have a complaint box, right? And they basically put their complaint in there saying such and such person, they could be anonymous, I think, was not following protocol. And the fitness center, the staff could send a nice reminder to the user, hey, you know, you really might want to consider doing a better job cleaning up after yourself. So I think we want to continue to maintain that kind of setup, but they are responsible to clean up after themselves. And I think what Jason's referring to is the more thorough cleansing of the fitness center that would take place, to try to knock down the bacterial load, you know, after a couple of days. So I think that, I'm trying to remember, because we had the fogger, the sanitization fogger that we would go in. And I can't remember how they were going in there, you know, the hours, if they were reserving some hours off, being off, to be able to go in there and fog the room and let it dry out. It doesn't take that long. But I would agree that, you know, we could leave that up to them.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second to open the gym, fitness center, under certain conditions that we would allow the rec to decide how and when they should actually go through a cleansing process.
That's not what the motion is. We have to either deny this motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry. So, yes, so could you repeat the motion again?
So my
That you
motion-
wanted to go with 2 days a week?
Would be to reopen the gym
Yep.
and leaving it closed 2 days a week to, and again, the 2 days could be determined by the rec, but my
Right.
motion was to leave it closed for 2 days a
Right.
week to facilitate better cleaning.
I think we're all set with the discussion. All in favor? Opposed? How many opposed?
2.
2?
No,
3?
I'm opposed to the 2-day, I'm opposed to the 2-day closure.
That's what I am too, opposed to the 2-day closure.
Well, then we need to revisit that with a different motion. If we're,
So I will make a motion that we reopen the fitness center and we allow Sam and his staff to work with Gary and figure out the best, cleaning schedule where the staff will feel safe
there you go.
and if they determine that it's 2 days a week, then that's what they determine.
Very good.
And we'll honor that.
Second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
No, hold on.
Oh, you did have, I'm sorry, I thought you were raising your hand and you were all in favor. Go ahead.
I think the only thing we should really stipulate is that we need to ensure that people are following the mask mandate. Again, it's a public building, and according to the governor's orders, it's masking the whole time you're in that public building. And if they don't mask up, they need to be told.
You're right.
Anybody else?
And I think Sam commented on that as well. There are fitness centers open downstate, they do require masks. So,
Good. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, one final question
Pertaining to?
pertaining to, seeing that other communities have opened up their town offices, is there a reason why ours is remaining closed?
Well, I'm not ready to entertain that at this moment, but we can consider that. But at this point, I want to consider the last thing that's on the agenda here, then we can go back and reconsider that at
Okay,
another time. So we have one other item to consider the replacement and / purchase of the Klein Mill stair stepper for the fitness center. So do we have any information on that?
yeah, so we have one that's, Sam has indicated that it's no longer in good working service, so he's got a proposal to replace that. The amount of that is $4,995. We do have a reserve account for that. The fitness center is a standalone, we call it an enterprise, and so it's not money's raised through taxes, so this reserve account is derived from revenues from the fitness center, but it still is a reserve account, so we would ask that if you would be inclined to agree to this, to authorize, you can see the request for authorization to withdraw from reserve funds for that amount of money.
I would,
Do I have a motion?
I will make that motion.
One second.
Any more discussion? I wish you were here. I'd like to know more about the one that he's got in hand and how old and really,
It's pretty beat up. Oh,
it
sorry.
is.
The gym gets a lot of use.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty beat up. I saw it myself, and it's pretty beat up.
Do we have any other discussions? All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Daigle, did you have something else?
yes, the reopening of the town office, seeing that all other communities, everyone around us has reopened their town offices. And actually, I'd like to make a motion that we reopen our town office, maintaining proper social distancing, requiring of the masks, if that makes everybody feel safer. But there's a lot of public pressure and concern about not having the access that they would like to have with the town office. At some point in time, we do have to reopen that town office and get on with our lives. The presidential election has gone by. Biden is the president, we gotta live with it. COVID has come, COVID is going, we need to get back on track, and we need to open our town office. So I make a motion that we reopen our town office.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You got a second? Any other discussion?
Well, I understand what Dan is saying. The other town offices, are open. A lot of them are staggering staff, and I think part of our discussion was we were shorthanded to be able to stagger staff. So I don't know. I'd like to hear from you guys if you have an opinion. Can we reduce hours? What can we do? Like, you know, do we?
So we're gonna be full staff in a couple of weeks, but we're gonna be training. So, you know, that's, the new person's not gonna be, for a little while, we're not gonna be able to take the training wheels off of her, so, one consideration. I think a consideration is one of continuity of services and trying to mitigate wherever we can, the risks. I understand we could all get this somewhere else. But I think that, you know, our approach has been to this so far, that if we can mitigate the risks to the staff, because if we come down with somebody in the office, if somebody comes down with COVID in the office, then we're out of business. Okay, so I'm not gonna say that what we have is the best plan, the best approach. I don't think there is such a thing for what we're dealing with. It's not any easier for the staff it's more work for the staff to do with what we're doing now than it is to have people come to the counter. It just adds a lot more time to the transactions, and it's inconvenient. It's inconvenient for them, for the patrons. It's inconvenient for the staff as well. It is. So, some other towns are open. Some other towns have a better front vestibule area that's conducive to be able to spread people out. Ours is, the front of our office is very narrow, and it's tough. You know, we do have the barriers in place, so I don't know.
I mean, yeah, are we, I'm sorry, give me just a second. Are we limiting the services that we offer because we're a closed office? We're not limiting anything. So the concerns from the public would be what? That I can't walk into a building or can't come
It's
talk to?
inconvenient.
Huh?
It's inconvenient.
Inconvenient in that they what, have to?
There's a lot of them that pay with cash.
All right, so
Okay,
that is,
so
then
that's a big issue.
that's an issue there. Now, what happens when they pay with
And
cash?
you've got the March coming in, you're gonna have people coming in with their taxes, a lot of them pay with cash, so how are you gonna do this?
So, all right, so let's talk about that. How do we handle a cash transaction?
Last year, they weren't closed at that time, they were closed after the tax season. This
Right.
is coming in here.
Well, we had talked about the cash transaction, that we would do it through the, you know, hand it through the door, the window, we would count the cash, they would give it to us, count the cash so we could, in front of them.
Right.
Go do the, complete the transaction, come back, give them the receipt, count the cash, and
Oh my
give it
God,
back to them.
that's 3 times the work.
So, it's a lot more work,
That's
I
ridiculous.
don't disagree with that.
Mr. Boucher?
I think that there's a lot of good protections at the town office. I think that I have heard a lot of people having a hard time and being worried about being able to use the services with cash and other things. And I feel that if we're ready to open the gym, that people are gonna be buying passes. We're gonna have even more people who want to access the town office to pay for those passes. I think it might be time to start opening it up.
Mr. Daigle?
I understand that it is a legitimate concern of a lot of people. I believe that we can reopen our town office very cautiously. Up until now, prior to the complete closure, customers were coming in through the side entrance that I call, like the school,
Entrance,
that side entrance, and they were exiting the front.
right?
We do have the plexiglass barriers between the customer and our employees. Both sides are wearing a mask. And if there's any concern about having two people at the counter, we can easily fix that and asking people, one customer at a time. Exit out the front door and just keep moving them through. But at some point in time, we have to reopen our town office and get on with life.
Anybody else?
The queuing of customers, I'm gonna call it the queuing of customers, is been, when we had put up some barriers and we had put up the curtains and to try to provide for separation, but when people were coming in, the queuing was, you know, sometimes it was hard. People couldn't see inside to see whether or not they could come in, they get into the door, stand at the bottom of the stairs, and so you would get that stacking up of things, so it takes, how would I say that? Two parties have to work together, right? And so for the staff, to be able to say, you know, wait there, come forward, you know, we're gonna, sometimes people are really good with that, sometimes not so much. And so, I think Nat, you wanna kind of talk about your experience with the front and how that worked?
My experience, I've had some people that they like to stay a while, so they hold on most of the line. Had some that wanna come in all together. I've had some that, they just, some that you know that have been sick and they come in anyway.
Yeah.
And they just don't believe in COVID, so they decide to just come in anyway. And you know they've come in, we've had some reports of them saying, hey, this person has had it, and they've been in your facility. Not everybody listens to the rules.
Any more discussion?
So I'll go back to say what I said earlier. I get it that, you know, in my household, I've got 3 kids, they go to school, my wife teaches, we all have an opportunity to catch it somewheres. We also have an opportunity to catch it in the workplace. And so, you know, we all try to mitigate the risk as much as we can, wherever we can. And I will say that, and I'm glad you brought it up, that there were people coming in that we knew had COVID and they were coming in to do their transactions earlier on. And so that was kind of concerning. I think that there are many ways to process transactions. We've been able to process every transaction that we need to. Nobody's not been able to get the services that you need, and granted that it takes longer, so, okay, it's, at some point we do have to open, I don't disagree with that. But I do know that if we do get it, we're gonna be closed for a while. So,
Anybody else? So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of reopening the town office? Raise your hand. Opposed? No, motion carries. Motion carries. Reopen the office. All right,
But it doesn't have to be tomorrow there, right? I mean, they can,
I think we'll take the day to figure out what we need to do.
When per person, I don't know.
Well, I mean, since the motion's still fresh, can we add to the motion that we open it
We've
on
already voted.
Monday, just to give
Right,
it time?
we
You
can't-
We already voted.
No, 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 no.
Can we,
want it open tomorrow? I'm just asking.
can you change the flow
No.
and use
Doesn't have to
the
open
doors
tomorrow.
in
Well, that's what I'm
front
saying.
to
Would
come
you be
in
okay
so
with it
people
open on
can see
Monday?
if there's people in there? Do we
Take our
just
time.
have them going out the
All right.
other way instead, or have to be let in?
Could
I
you,
think
you know,
this issue is done.
We'll figure out
logistics.
the logistics of how
I,
the patterns.
I do have one more thing, Doug, under,
Okay,
okay. It doesn't have to be voted on, but I would like to discuss it for next time. I appreciate how we're able to bring our things, board things, and Dan comes in and brings stuff. It's, I had no idea he was gonna talk about the stipend. I wish we could have talked about it before. It kind of put people on the spot. It's not a comfortable thing, and I very well couldn't vote against it because I had been the big mouth before that wanted to eliminate them completely. I feel like if we're going to introduce something under other business, first off, we should be limited on our time because nobody should be making half-hour speeches. Second, this other business, we should have an indication of what's gonna get discussed. If you're gonna bring in something about the snowmobiles, that we wanna discuss it, then give Gary a heads up or give us a heads up so we can have the statute in front of us, or we could have the law in front of us pertaining to the public participation. Sometimes to just have stuff thrown out and nobody knew it was coming doesn't give us a chance to really give it any justice.
Well, Selectman Laurie, I
you know?
requested in writing several things to be on the agenda for tonight,
Oh, no, I'm not.
none of which appeared
I'm
on
not
the
picking at
agenda.
you, I'm just saying all of us, like, if we have something, maybe we should,
certainly it would help, I think,
and like, if we gave you the information, that would cue you to put it on the agenda too, like, it would be, like, I would have liked to know about, the
I just
distance
got
of this,
into
I don't know.
Just came in today.
No, I get it,
Is it
I'm
in
just-
order to request something for the next meeting's agenda at this point?
the meeting is still open.
Okay, I would like to request, it's common knowledge that there's a lot of public pressure pertaining to I don't want to get in trouble here, a venture that involves computers, Simple Computers 101. There's a lot of questions being asked. There's a lot of uncertainties. I, myself, have a lot of questions. And I'd just like an opportunity to ask those questions. And if it requires an executive session, I'm perfectly okay with that. But I personally, as a selectman, am not ready to move forward any more than where we are at today without having certain questions answered.
Yes.
You know what, I'd like to discuss this today because I've had many personal attacks towards my business in videos, in public, and every time I posted an answer to these, they've been deleted and removed. And I have never had my opportunity to defend my business. It's always been brought up and put aside, brought up and put aside, brought up and put aside. And let's put this to bed today. Let's get that information out there, let's get those questions answered, because I have lost customers, I have lost employees, and I have lost business because of the lies, the manipulation, and the untruth that has been put out about my business, some of which are coming from board members on this board who know better and have the correct information but refuse to acknowledge it. So let's set this to bed today and not wait for another meeting.
When you say you want to set this straight.
Let's answer the
tell-
questions.
Well, before we get there, when you say you want to set this straight, you want to discuss this personal issue that you are bringing up at this moment? About your company, your business, and you?
Yes.
You want to discuss that now?
Sure. Mr. Board, I just don't think that's town business. I'm sorry, and I sympathize. I do sympathize with the fact that, you're being targeted. But what happens outside our municipal operation, in my opinion, okay? We have vendors that work for us, they either provide a product or a service, okay? And our concern, in my opinion, okay, is that if we If we're buying a product, or we're buying a service, our concern should be, are we getting the product and service that we ask for? And are we getting it for the cost that we ask for? And the only other concern that we have, okay, is that we can 1099 that vendor, so you have their tax information so that we can 1099 them for the services that they provide, for tax filing purposes. So I don't, it was a request made for the town to investigate the legality of another business. It's not our job to do that, okay? If there's a question about the legality of the
Are
business.
you okay to the response that Mr. Picard is giving you for the time being?
No, because I believe that if somebody on the board is concerned about the legitimacy of a business and has put it out there to multiple forums, that I deserve to defend and provide the correct information to Mr. Daigle that the business is a legitimate
I
business.
think we can do that outside of a board meeting.
I will add one thing though, okay, and I stand by what I say, but I also say that in the context that the pressure is being put on him because of his position to make decisions on this board, okay, is a concern for this board. That's what I think the concern, that this board should have about the concern.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about
It's business.
filing status or whether or not a business is in Uganda or whatever. We have the 1099 on record, okay, we have the W-2 on record, so we can 1099.
W9.
The W-9, sorry. And we're gonna get a product or the service that we're gonna vet, okay, and hope. We're gonna basically hold the vendor to the word that we're gonna get a service and product that we want. And we're gonna pay for that service. Okay, that's what we've done so far.
Yes, Laurie?
I understand Gary's point, but I have to say that one of the questions that's being risen is whether this board went into basically an illegal transaction or signed off on a contract with a vendor that it wasn't legitimate, and Dan feels we should cancel the service and not continue with the project. That's not fair to Jason. He needs to be able to speak. I don't care if somebody thinks this is private business. The board has been brought into this. The town's being brought into this. There are words out there being used like that we have a board member that's committed a felony. I'm sorry, whether it's town business or not, I think Jason has a right to speak.
Okay, Jason. I'll give you the floor.
I will pass it over to Mr. Daigle here to ask his questions that he has for the legitimacy of the transaction the town performed.
Mr. Daigle, try to make this brief.
To be extremely brief, Mr. Chairman, I requested that it be put on next meeting's agenda. I am not prepared tonight to ask all of the questions that I need to ask. It's very simple. I'm not prepared tonight to address this.
Then it's not gonna get addressed. Tonight is the night you have to ask your questions. I'd like to present this to the board here. This is the official documentation of my business back in 2004, registering with the town of Madawaska to do business in the town of Madawaska. It's also the letter that was sent to the neighbors at the time with all my intent that I had to provide service to the town of Madawaska. I also have letters here from the previous two town managers, Christina and Ryan, saying that my company, before I was a member of the board, had provided plenty of computer and electronic services to the town of Madawaska during their time as members. I've also got my tax filings here with the state of Maine, all the way back from 2006 is the copy I have here, where my business was legitimately filing taxes. So the legitimacy of my business being able to do business with the town of Madawaska is all contained in this folder here, which you can ask for a Freedom of Information Act to get all this information and pass it on to your friends and family. my business is legitimate in town. Now, there was also an accusation of me committing a felony by illegally stating that somebody else was getting,
Please address the board, Mr.
sorry, that somebody else was doing the work. I have actually shown other board members on this board the 1099, which I did not have to do, that I, as a business owner, provided to the employee, excuse me, who is doing the work on this application. All expenses have been tracked properly and reported to the state when taxes had to be filed, because this 1099 had to be filed. So unless you have any other questions or concerns or requests, then I would not entertain discussing this again at another board meeting.
You are prepared to provide that information?
Yes, it's all right here in the folder.
Will that suffice to your questions, Mr. Daigle?
Want to make it perfectly clear that I am not the one that brought forth the accusations. I want that to be perfectly clear. But as a representative of the taxpayers that are asking the questions, I feel a responsibility to give an answer to their questions. Secondly, I have questions that did come up in my mind. If we are interested and if we are looking to establish, let's say, this service that we're looking into, I also believe that this needs to go out on bid, that we're not to give this out to the first person that comes our way. That if that is our venture, that we are required to look if we can get an identical service.
Before you go too far with this, I mean, the issue here this evening is, or this issue that we're discussing is the issue about Mr. Boucher's business, and you have questions about his legitimacy. So he is providing you that information. Is that enough for you at this point to end this discussion?
Has he filed a 706 for personal property tax with the town?
Mr. Chair, can we, this is gonna go on, obviously,
Right.
for a long time.
Well, and that's why, Mr. Pika, that's why that I requested that it be put on the agenda for the next meeting. So does that make sense or does it not?
I am, again, with the belief that he is providing you with the information that you are looking for. He's
No,
made it available to you.
No, Mr. Chairman, I just informed you that I
Mr.
am...
Mr. Daigle, please.
No, I have the floor.
Mr. Daigle,
No, I have the floor.
Mr. Daigle.
I
No,
have the floor.
Mr. Daigle, I am the
I
chair.
asked,
Mr.
I
Daigle.
asked to put this on
All right.
next meeting's agenda
Let's call this,
because I am not
can we
prepared.
adjourn this meeting now? Can I have a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
to adjourn.
Okay, can I have a motion to have a second? All in favor? The meeting is adjourned.